Hi, everyone. This is Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg from WABC, and we're talking about Milton. This is Weather or Not and Wake Up Weather for ABC7 NY. And the time for preparing and evacuating in Florida coming to an end as Milton is less than 24 hours away from making a landfall, likely as a major Category 3 hurricane, potentially a low-end 4. You know, it was upgraded to a Category 5 again on Tuesday with 165-mile-per-hour winds. If you remember the pressure readings and you're familiar with that range, it went sub 900 millibars, making it one of the strongest storms all time in the Atlantic Basin in terms of central pressure. Well, once again on Tuesday, it flirted with the 900 millibar level, so went into top 10 lowest pressures all time. An incredible storm that hopefully will go through an eye replacement cycle where it weakens again during the day on Wednesday, but it'll still be a formidable major hurricane and a devastating hurricane for the Florida Peninsula, which was hit by Helene. So in a weakened state, you have a major hurricane closing in, and not even at an angle that you typically anticipate from southwest to northeast. This is just barreling in from the west. So landfall is likely to happen near Sarasota. So this is a slight jog to the south with the overall track. It's likely to happen late Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, sometime around 2 in the morning. Along and just south of the track, we can expect a 10 to 15 foot surge, but the area where that's going to happen has changed a little bit, and I'll show you on the maps. Winds are likely to go over 110 miles an hour with some higher gusts. Rainfall totals will go over a half foot in many places. Maybe some places could actually achieve a foot of rainfall in a narrow band along the I-4 corridor. There'll be a tornado threat as well across much of the peninsula, especially across South Florida, while places like Fort Lauderdale and Miami, the Keys, for the most part, spared the worst from the storm. There still will be some squally bands that come through along with a tornado threat. But you're talking about major impact well inland with this storm in the peninsula, and hurricane warnings are out on both coasts. That's the thing. There's a storm surge on the East Coast with this track from basically Melbourne all the way up to Jacksonville, where there'd be a 2 to even 5 foot storm surge. I'll talk about that. The satellite imagery has been jaw-dropping because, of course, it looked like a buzzsaw as we were going through Monday. And then the eye closed up as we went into Monday night and early Tuesday, and we woke up to a 145-mile-per-hour storm on Tuesday after it going up to 180 miles an hour. So, you know, really kind of a tease, because all of a sudden that eye became so well-defined on Tuesday afternoon, and the storm almost looked even more efficient as we moved through Tuesday night. So what's happening is it moved through basically the purest atmospheric conditions it was going to see, along with the bathwater of the southern Gulf, 85 to 90 degree water temperatures. Now, as we move through the day on Wednesday, we hope that some of the inhibiting factors can work on the storm and shave it down a little bit in terms of category and wind and power, because it's going to move to still very warm water, but some of the upwelling that happened from Helene, so a few degrees cooler in the water temperature. There's a lot of jet stream energy riding across the northern Gulf, so there'll be some shear, maybe some dry air works into the storm. So we're hoping that all comes together to at least knock it down in intensity a little bit. At this point, though, foregone conclusion that we're going to have devastating impacts across the west coast of Florida. Where will it be worse, though? We'll get into that. Wave action, the storm estimated 20, 25-foot waves. That's only going to get larger. Remember, this thing has been now a plunger in the Gulf for quite a while. So there's a tremendous amount of water buildup that's going to be coming toward the coast. So through the day on Wednesday, we'll likely be looking at a very powerful Category 4 storm. As it approaches the west coast, it'll still be a major Cat 3. Now notice the cone, which has definitely shifted south. If you remember, I mean, even during the day on Monday and in a Monday night, that northern edge of the cone was all the way up to the Big Bend and not too far from Cedar Key. Well, now the most likely area where we'll see landfall is probably close to Sarasota, maybe even a touch to the south. I just want to go back to that time frame. It'll be crossing the peninsula from about 2 or 3 in the morning on Thursday to about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So those are the key 12 hours. And notice how it could go from basically Sarasota to about Melbourne. So if you're on this side in your Port Charlotte, Fort Myers area, this is where the worst surge is going to be realized. If you think about the winds around the hurricane here, you're going to have more of an offshore wind on Tampa Bay, tremendous surge on St. Pete, but there'll still be tremendous water that funnels into the bay. So could we still hit double-digit storm surge? That's a possibility, but it's probably not the worst-case scenario for Tampa, while it is for places like maybe not so much Bradenton, but certainly Sarasota down to the Fort Myers area. And now you talk about the storm surge even in the Naples area, looking a little bit higher. So it tears across the state. And then remember, you've got now Atlantic water being pulled in north of the Space Coast. So we'll have a storm surge to the north there. It will exit the east coast of Florida on Thursday afternoon, move out in the Atlantic north of the Bahamas, and then become a depression and ultimately a subtropical, still strong storm, but a subtropical storm as it likely moves nearer south of Bermuda as we go late week. So here are the storm surge changes now in terms of the forecast. Lowering some storm surge amounts to the north. The Hurricane Center still has the 10 to 15 foot surge in Tampa, although it would definitely favor the lower end here. Now in Helene, there were some 7, near 8 foot surges. It probably will be closer to Helene or just above, which still caused significant damage. But now, instead of, a 6 to 9 or 5 to 8 foot surge just to the south, you're talking about the potential for an 8 to 12 foot surge into the Fort Myers area and even a 5 to 8 foot surge into Naples. So we're starting to get close to numbers of Ian back in 2022, maybe a little below that. Then you see the surges that are happening along the East Coast, especially Space Coast northward up to Jacksonville, a 3 to 5 foot surge. Winds that will likely be realized. And again, this is Tampa to Fort Myers, but maybe a little bit more to the south. Winds could go over 110 miles an hour. There's going to be extensive power outages, structural damage because of the winds, and then, of course, the inundation of the surge, which will go several miles inland. But I mean, if you look at the area in yellow, you have tropical storm force winds across the entire peninsula. So there will be some impact across most of the state, with the worst across parts of central Florida. Here's another way to look at the overall evolution of how the wind's coming in. A very compact powerhouse of a storm on Wednesday morning will start to expand as it approaches the west coast of Florida. So tropical storm force conditions can start to be felt during the afternoon hours on Wednesday. The eye wall and hurricane force winds close in on the coast toward midnight. So already we're getting into some really rough conditions here. And by the way, we got tropical storm conditions already up and down the East Coast, maybe even down to the Palm Beaches. This will hold together as either a Cat 1 or 2 through the central part of the state. So we could have hurricane force gusts at least to Orlando and Melbourne. That's why you've heard some of the parks, like Disney parks, being closed down for this storm, which I think is a great move. And then the storm will move offshore, and we'll see things start to improve in terms of weather conditions on Friday, but there'll be a major cleanup across central Florida. In terms of rainfall, 5 to even up to 12 inches in local spots. There might even be some spots that go above that, over 1.5 feet of rainfall, and that would be in a small strip just to the north of the Tampa and Orlando area. Although, if the trend in the track continues off to the south, we may have to move that narrow band a little closer to those two places. Here's a look at one of the Futurecasts that I think this storm center is still being depicted a little bit too far to the north, but you get the idea of how conditions have gone downhill Wednesday afternoon and evening. And just a snapshot of the winds as we approach midnight Thursday of 99 miles an hour in Sarasota. And let's say that this is a little farther south and Sarasota is right along the eye wall. We're going to be seeing winds realized over 100 miles an hour and some stronger gusts down toward the Fort Myers area as well. But all that water being pushed up toward Naples and Fort Myers and Sarasota. And you see some of the gusts. I mean, Orlando, even on a computer model, showing wind gusts over 60 miles an hour. So damaging winds and maybe some intense freshwater flooding going on in places like Orlando. And a lot of folks leaving the Tampa area trying to evacuate toward the Orlando area will have a pretty bad situation there as well. Then the storm begins to pull offshore as we go into Thursday evening. Then on top of it, it's the tornado threat. And again, I mean, basically 2/3 of the state in, right now a 5% area of tornadic activity. And this is realized later Wednesday and into the day on Thursday. But there'll be numerous spin-ups, typically tornadoes within hurricanes. You're not talking about the biggest tornadoes, quick spin-ups, but still can be damaging and dangerous. And that's probably one of the bigger risks across parts of South Florida. Now, just finishing up on the overall tropical discussion, not only are we looking at Milton, but we're looking at a storm that became a hurricane again out in the Atlantic, Leslie, which will weaken and recurve into the Atlantic, so we don't have to worry about that. But let's look at the low-level spin as we close out the tropical discussion. And what I want to point out are these areas of red. So there's Leslie, and there's Milton right here going across Florida. And look how Milton almost chases Leslie into the North Atlantic. After that, we have some strong fronts coming through as we go into next week with some cold shots. But the only thing I'm seeing is late next week, around the 17th or 18th, something approaching the Lesser Antilles coming off the African coast. So we will watch that. But right now, at least in the short term, we got a lot of westerlies coming in from the northeast. So just like we're protected with Milton, at least over the next 7 to 10 days, it doesn't look like any tropical systems would be able to make it up into the northeast. So again, our weather headlines: Milton's a major hurricane closing in on Florida. We are quiet here, but we also have a cool down that will last through Friday morning. Thursday is going to be our coolest day as we struggle through the 50s most of the day. And by Friday morning, we'll be in the 40s for the first time in New York City. And there could be some 30s off to the north and west, and the opportunity for the first frost of the season. There's a pretty decent amount of wind around, but I think we might get some patchy frost in the coldest spots north and west. By Saturday, we've rebounded into the 70s. Could we touch 80 in interior parts of New Jersey? I don't think it's in the cards for most because there's some clouds mixing in. But if it's a little sunnier, we got a shot to really skyrocket temperatures in the upper 70s to near 80 in interior parts of New Jersey. Most of us will get in the low and mid 70s at least. But then after that, a cold shot that will bring us our chilliest air of the season. By Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe even a Thursday next week, we will struggle to get out of the 50s for high temperatures, despite seeing some sunshine come back. Short-term Futurecast, one of those little troughs coming through that keep chopping down our temperatures, will be moving through on Wednesday morning, so you might wake up to partial cloud cover. There could even be an isolated shower to the north and temperatures in the 40s. So a chilly start, but then a very pretty day. Sunny to partly cloudy skies. Temperatures will be in the mid-60s. Another one of those little disturbances rolling through into Thursday morning. Partly cloudy skies overnight. Then these numbers on Thursday, starting out around 50 in New York City, widespread 40s in the suburbs, maybe 30s in the coolest spots, and our breezes are picking up. In fact, I'll show you a wind futurecast in a moment. Those breezes already start to pick up by Wednesday evening, and you're really going to notice that autumn wind on Thursday. So even if we touch 60 on the thermometer for a red-hot second in a few spots, the flavor of the day is 50s, despite the fact that we'll have sunshine and just some patchy clouds. Again, even later Wednesday, if you're out all day, and again, it's super comfortable in the early afternoon, make sure you have the coat for the evening hours because the wind is picking up. The air is drier. It's going to feel chilly as we go into Wednesday evening and temperatures start to drop. And we should have some winds on Thursday that gust 20, 25 miles an hour. So that'll make it feel a little brisk. So Thursday is the coolest day here as Milton is exiting Florida. Big area of high pressure trying to move in. Friday, we'll get back to seasonable conditions. More of a westerly, southwesterly flow coming in as that high settles into the Tennessee Valley. Friday looks really nice. Saturday, a cold front's approaching, so it's just going to depend on the amount of cloud cover. If we can stay partly sunny, we'll get well into the 70s, maybe even an 80 across interior parts of New Jersey. But if there are more high clouds that mask the sunshine a little bit, we'd probably top out in the low and middle 70s. Still looks like the warmest day for a while, because after that we'll get into a cooler stretch. Sunday's not a bad day. We're probably in the upper 60s to around 70. It's a lot more clouds around. There are some indications with a warm front that showers are going to stay along and north the I-90 corridor, but I can't rule out a shower, especially in the afternoon and at night as this system begins to roll through. Looking at the overall steering winds, you got one cold shot, little trough there in the east on Thursday, a recovery into the first part of the weekend where our air is more Pacific, then another little dipper, that's not so little, an upper low over eastern Canada, and initially the coldest air is actually off to the west, diving into the upper Midwest, so we'll probably struggle to maybe around 60 on Tuesday at best, and then the cool air drives eastward. It's kind of modified, but I can just see how we're probably going to stay in the 50s on Wednesday and Thursday, and then that starts to lift out and our temperature should recover later. So with that in mind, beyond the 7-day, October 16th to the 22nd, you can see the above normal signal out west, and we're near to below normal in terms of our temperatures. And in fact, that 10-day temperature trend after the spike in numbers to start the weekend, look how we're around 60 Monday and Tuesday, and then closer to upper 50s to around 60 Wednesday and Thursday of next week before we start to see some recovery, but below normal for quite a stretch there. Now to the rain discussion as we finish up our discussion on whether or not. Since September 1st, just over 1.5 inches of rain. Our deficit is running near 4 inches below average, and our surplus for the year, which was so great through the summer, is almost wiped away, and our reservoirs are running 3% below capacity, and I don't see much of a change here. We have a below normal signal beyond the 7-day for below normal precipitation as we go into the second half of the month. You can even see it in the short term. Maybe we get a couple of showers coming in during the day on Sunday, but I don't think it's anything significant. 7 in the morning on your Wednesday. It is partly cloudy and cool. There might be a sprinkle north and west. It's 40s many suburbs. A beautiful day, though, sunny to partly cloudy and seasonable, and then the breeze starts picking up later in the day as cooler air is ready to come in. So tomorrow night down to 50, maybe even upper 40s. A chilly, gusty breeze, mostly clear, 30s in the coldest spots. Here's your 7-day AccuWeather forecast. Again, there's not much rain, little or no rain. But Thursday, even if we hit 60, feels like 50, sun and patchy clouds. Seasonable sunshine on Friday. As Yom Kippur begins, we'll be dropping from the 60s into the 50s. Saturday will be the warmest day for a while, in the mid-70s. I'm not sure we even reach 70 on Sunday. It's going to be close. It's not cold, though. Upper 60s to around 70. A lot of clouds, might be a shower around. Then a shower at night. Then it's windy and cooler on Columbus Day. For the parade, about 62. You'll need your fall coat. I think it'll be mainly dry, but it will be brisk. And then on Tuesday, a brisk wind as well. 50s for many, even though I have 60 listed as a high for New York City, and down to 47 at night. By the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday, we're probably stuck in the 50s. That's the way the weather forecast is shaping up. You can always get your weather information on ABC7NY 24/7. Thanks for listening to Whether or Not. We'll see you next time, rain or shine.